right, welcome to Book Club. I'm Dylan, here with the man the ladies refer to as Shai Hulud. Keith, what's up, buddy?
Is that right? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Is that good or bad? Do you want to give me a translation real quick?
Well, Shai Hulud is the biggest sandworm, so if you know what I'm saying.
Then that is a lie.
We're also excited to have a guest this week. You may remember him from our Red Rising episode, our friend from Finland, Mikko. What's up, buddy?
Hey, guys. Glad to be here.
Here at the Buddy Book Club, we're breaking down some bestsellers and some box office bangers. This week, we'll be discussing 2021's much-anticipated film, Dune. If you'd like to recommend a book or movie for us to read or watch, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify, so please download and subscribe. Gentlemen, Dune Part 1 is leaving Netflix on February 28th, and Dune Part 2 comes out March 1st. So I think this was an important time to go back and take a look at this masterpiece. A masterpiece, in my opinion. We'll find out about you guys. Keith, I went into our show on Spotify and was looking for the episode, the Dune episode, so I could kind of see what we talked about because I couldn't find my notes on it. We never did Dune. We never did the book.
This is one of those ones that I think we debated and talked about over text.
I've read this book since we started the Buddy Book Club, so I don't know how the heck we didn't talk about it. I mean, I'm glad we're doing Shōgun now because that is my all-time number one, but Dune's probably a pretty close second for me. But for those that don't know or maybe just don't really understand, I'm going to do a quick exposition here, just like the 1984 movie when Princess Irulan spends like 20 minutes talking about what's happening. Dune is set in the distant future. The Emperor runs the Empire, and there's several great houses. The two at the center of this story are House Atreides and House Harkonnen. At the Emperor's decree, House Atreides was given stewardship of Arrakis, aka Dune, supplanting House Harkonnen, who had been there pretty much to harvest spice, because Arrakis is a source of spice, which is the most important commodity in the galaxy. You need spice for interstellar travel. I guess navigators get all high and see the path, all that stuff. The whole thing is a trap, though, and the Harkonnens return to decimate House Atreides. Paul and his mother survive, and they seek to take refuge with the Fremen, who are the people that live on Dune. That's pretty much the story. I think we should just jump in hot and heavy with some stock up, stock down. Keith, what do you have for stock up?
Stock up Command and Conquer, a.k.a. Command and Conquer Red Alert.
Oh, Red Alert? That stock's super high.
It's a high stock, but I mean, we're buying it again. If you've ever played, one of the big strategies, I mean, a lot of the missions in the game is you don't have a base sometimes, and you have to like start off and take out an enemy's base, right? You send a couple engineers in there, take over their headquarters, and just kind of restart a mission while using the enemy's base. In this instance, I'm not really sure why they didn't play Command and Conquer and do the same thing. The Harkonnens give up their territory, but they know they're going to come back. And then they come back and decimate everything. It's like, but you're about to take it back over and start using all the resources again. Why would you sabotage, go in and like burn all the palm trees, burn everything? It's like, you're about to just live there again. You're just like destroying your own home. It didn't really make a ton of sense. Had they played Command and Conquer, they would have figured this out. So can you explain that to me, D-Man and Mikko?
I can explain to you that whenever I played Command and Conquer, the only thing I wanted to do was build kennels so I could have a bunch of dogs.
I mean, it takes one to know one, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Honestly, the only part that I thought was a bit much was it seemed like they had already taken over, and then there's like one shot of this ship just unleashing endless warheads at the surface.
Just destroying the city. You're raising the city for no reason.
I think in that particular scene, our boy Denis, the director, was just like, this is a super cool shot. Let's have all these warheads come out of this spaceship and blow shit
all
up.
Right. That's fair. Or if they're like trying to send a message or they're not going to use the place again, but they're like obviously going there to take it back over and use the resources again. So they're like, fuck all these things. It's like, what? What are you doing?
Yeah, Mikko, how'd you feel about that?
So they have a spice reserve that the Baron is like, well, let's just start selling off that. I think, to your point, Keith, that you mentioned, I think it's just sending a message. They're just going to go there and fucking annihilate every single one of them that there could possibly be in the city. And then they'll rebuild it because they've got the time to be there.
You think they're doing like the diamond play where they're like, oh, spice is super limited now, and now we'll have to sell it for really high price? You think they're doing that play?
Exactly.
Economics 101.
Economics 101. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but Harkonnen is a Finnish name, Finnish origin. So I'm very glad to be here to shed some light and don't appreciate you questioning the motives of my people, Keith. All right, so cool it.
I don't know how closely associated you want to be with the Baron. Like, they didn't get into it much in the movie, but he likes to rape little boys. So, yeah.
Well, he's played by a Swedish guy, so we can get into that later.
And Mikko, are all Swedish and / Baron type people, do they also expand and grow massively like he does?
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Oh, no? Yeah. They're big growers, not showers.
You know, he like comes out of the ground and like lifts off, and he's like huge all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Is that you, Mikko?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Baron is a massive man. I think he should have been more massive, personally, but that's my take. Mikko, what did you have for stock up?
Spices. Spices make everything taste better in our world, and apparently in this world they also help you hallucinate. I mean, that's just, what more can you ask for from a little bit of spice?
Yeah, in this world you have to go get some fungi.
I've eaten a couple hot wings that were too hot for my liking, aka like buffalo sauce. That's too hot for me. And I've hallucinated, so I don't know what you're talking about. I think that's in our world also.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I apologize.
I had stock up as drugs, so I think that covers it as well, because at least in the world of Dune, taking these drugs is not only religious, you know, for the Fremen, which is true in a lot of cultures on Earth here, but you need it for space travel. That's pretty cool. You know what I mean? If we had some spice here, all of a sudden we just need some guild navigators to start taking some spice, and we can go wherever the heck we wanted. All the Fremen would just like have blue eyes from just ingesting a lot of spice. It was like Miami in the 80s. You know, it's like, you just expected that cocaine was out. Like, everyone's just expected to be high on cocaine. In this society, it kind of seems like drugs are okay. Keith, do you have any other stock ups?
Stock up nature over nurture. I feel like Paul's mom is constantly worried and like crying about Paul. She's like, he's not going to be able to handle it and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yet everything that she's worried about is because she passed those genes onto him. She should know this stuff. She's like, you're seeing things in the future? That's your whole thing.
The Bene Gesserits have lots of powers. I think prescience is not one of them, though.
It seems like she's kind of grappling with the fact that he might actually be the one. And or if he's not, he's probably going to get killed by that old lady.
I think prescience or foresight, whatever the thing is like singular to Paul. So that is crazy for her. There was the Kwisatz Haderach, which is the Bene Gesserit's Messiah that's to come, has that power. So I think when she sees it in him, she's concerned for him. If that is him, it makes him like a big target and whatnot. But I think what you do get out of this movie is a great relationship between Paul and his mom. And there's not a lot going on in terms of relationships and dialogues in here besides Jason Momoa like running and hugging Paul every single time he sees him. But you do get the feeling that like that's such a strong relationship. And I think in a movie that's really just so vast and so visual, that relationship actually sticks with you.
I thought that was just like, oh, well, she's like knows that all these things are going to have to come and he's going to have to be tested. Like, I thought that just was part of the rite of being a Bene Gesserit. Like, that's what you do. But it sounds like it's more of a chosen one thing.
Yeah, and the Gom Jabbar is only tested on potential Bene Gesserits or whatever. So I don't know if a man has like been tested by the Gom Jabbar. So that's why it's like a big thing. And she's not sure he's ready.
Well, she didn't really train him that well. That's what my whole nature versus nurture. Like, Paul's just a gamer because he's a gamer. Like, he teaches himself the voice, passes the test, even though she gives him no warning of it or anything. It's like, what is she helping him out with? She's worried because didn't do anything. You know, she didn't nurture him in any way.
Yeah, I think that's part of him or her and their way of like discovering whether or not he's actually the one. She can't like tell him every step he's going to encounter and like how to beat the test. You know what I mean? She's got to see if he can, on his own, beat the test.
Well, the Bene Gesserit like woman there that comes, she's like, oh, your mom's been teaching you. So like, it's not illegal, but it doesn't seem like she did a lot in the teaching.
The lady Helen Gaius something or whatever. Yeah. So, and it's interesting because in this movie, there's so few explanations of what's happening, and most often it's in like a sentence. So I'm glad you picked that up, that she said, oh, you've been training him, because that's actually like not like a significant portion of the book, but it's important in the book in that the Lady Jessica's been training Paul in secret. Like she's not supposed to be training him.
Which does segue into one of my other stock ups, and I think you guys are going to agree with me on this one, so I'm kind of excited about it. Putting your hand in a mystery box.
That's a stock up? You're buying that?
I'm buying that big time. Worked out for Paul. I think it could work out for me. I don't know about you guys. Just putting my hand in a bunch of boxes.
Are you just like going into men's locker rooms and just trying to see if there's any holes between the stalls you can put your hand in?
Exactly. Wait, you guys don't do that?
It's you're not supposed to put your hand in there. I'm just saying.
Oh.
But the Gom Jabbar scene is interesting because when's the last time you saw that 84?
A couple months ago, probably, over summer.
I just watched it like right afterwards because one, I was like, I could just restart this Denis Villeneuve's, whatever. I can't say his last name because I have no culture in me. I was like, all right, I got to rewatch the 1984 one just to know. They actually did a pretty good job with the Gom Jabbar scene. I think almost better than this movie because in there, what's supposed to be happening to Paul's hand is like he's basically seeing it like burn and rot away. They kind of show that visual of like this hand rotting and like you're feeling your hand being torn to pieces, but you can't pull your hand out. Where in this movie, I feel like it didn't seem like you could see he was in pain, but it wasn't like what's going on.
That was carried by Timothy Chalamet. That was a good acting job, but otherwise, yeah, you would have no idea what was going on.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you put your hand in here and like there's a needle to your neck. Like, oh, okay. My other stock up is having no idea what the fuck is going on. So it's normally in a movie, I like to have a good idea of what's happening and being able to follow the overarching ideas and just the pieces that are being moved around. And Dune itself there's just so much. There's so many players in the game. We kind of come into the story in the middle of it. Like obviously there's a lot going on between these houses and the Emperor. But this movie does such a good job, I feel like, of not getting bogged down in all of the lore. Because there's so much that they could have done and could have done from the book. And as someone who does love all of that lore and just instead focused on the relationships between the people and making it visually stunning.
Having not read the book, I've read reviews of people saying like how comprehensive the book is, how it's like Game of Thrones, Star Wars, whatever these other epic fantasies that have 5,000 characters. They did a great job in this. I understood that Harkonnen had been there for 80 years. They had created whatever, like 10 billion Solaris or whatever a year they were cranking out. And now it's being handed over because the Emperor wants to pit them against each other and the Emperor's worried about Atreides and so on and so forth. I thought they, in like a sentence here and a sentence there and a sentence there, kind of filled in a lot of those blanks really well in not a ton of dialogue. Like in the 84 version where they narrate.
Yeah, like everything. The 84 one is just like half exposition. The only time I've seen that done well is in the first Lord of the Rings movie when it was like 9 rings were gifted to the El or 9 rings were gifted to the men. And it's just 5 minutes. It's still epic. Like it's like, holy shit, we're really getting into this thing. And the music's obviously phenomenal. But that's the only time I've seen it done well. In the 84 one, it was too much. Keith, what about you?
Well, when I watched it in the theaters, I was just kind of blown away by the visuals the whole time. And it was hard to follow the dialogue. This time I watched it with the captions on, which I don't really like usually doing. That helped so much because they don't talk a lot and you kind of miss a lot of the stuff. But when you're reading it, you're like, oh, okay, now I'm picking up. I think you can get memorized by like the visuals and not really listen as much. So that definitely helped this second time around.
I've got a lot. I'll try to run through quickly. I mean, Hans Zimmer, I'm a huge fan. The bagpipes, when they open, House Atreides opens the doors, when they arrive on Arrakis, is just absolute goosebumps for my 50% of my biology that comes from Scotland. That's amazing. Then sword fighting. I don't know if I've just been watching a lot of, anime and Tokyo Vice and other things on HBO, but there's like a cool honor in that sort of combat versus just shooting a gun. So I really appreciate all those fight scenes. And I'm sure we'll get into our favorite scenes and whatnot later, but that's awesome. And then the last thing I really appreciated and kind of makes me want to learn it is the subtle use of sign language that that the mom uses, and Paul a little bit, or he understands. That is, I don't know why that's so cool when she uses it like 3 or 4 times throughout the movie. It just looks like it's badass. I get why DK Metcalf learned it now.
Obviously, that's not ASL. It was created for the movie. Like, it's not in the book. It's not in the 84 version. It's not in any other version. They created it for the movie, and I thought it was perfect. I thought it was really a great decision. A couple for me was the CGI. I mean, CGI in general, it could be a love, I don't know. But the stock up CGI, basically the reason why the stock is up is because I'm comparing it to the 84 movie, which if you haven't seen it or you haven't seen it in a long time, or anyone is listening and is interested and hasn't seen it and maybe they don't want to watch it, which is fine. It's a David Lynch movie, so, you know, we shit on it, but there is some like good aspects to it. One not good aspect is go watch the training scene. Watch the training scene in Dune with Gurney Halleck, Josh Brolin's character, and Paul, you know, when they're just training, when they put their shields on and they, you know, train, that whole thing. It's almost exactly the same word for word. Like, the script is almost exactly the same as the 84 version, but the CGI is hilarious. Like, it's actually laugh out loud funny that someone thought that would make any sense. It's pretty much like block people. They all of a sudden turn into block people. It's wild.
Do you think in 40 years from now, we're going to look at this movie and be like, the CGI was so shitty in this, even though it's amazing to us now?
I don't know. Some of that holds up. I mean, I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey somewhat recently, like within the last year, 2 years or so. And even that stuff holds up. Like, the only things that don't hold up is like the monitor stuff, just because we're a monitor society now, you know, with tablets and whatnot. And even in Star Wars, when they're like the TIE fighter comes on the screen, it's like deet, 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 deet. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And Star Wars just like all lights and knobs. You know, there's no screens. Last stock up is Denis Villeneuve, the director. I mean, before Dune, like his movies before Dune, Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, Sicario, Enemy, haven't seen it, but then Prisoners, like all of those movies are so good. Getting into Blade Runner 2049 and Arrival, the like immense visuals are just like, holy smokes. So I think he was perfect, like an absolute perfect match to make this movie. And I'm so glad that he's doing it, that he did it, and that he's doing Dune Part 2. And hopefully Dune Messiah. Okay, let's get into Stock Down. Keith, what do you got for Stock Down?
Stock Down, National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. For those that don't know, it's December 7th, but I thought we would remember this. I know it's year like 10,000. It's still part of history.
Wait, Pearl Harbor's year 10,000? What's year 10,000?
The movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Keith's been taking that spice a little bit.
They land right on Dune, and there's obvious hostility that's being presented to them. There's getting assassination attempts. You would think they'd be kind of on high alert. The U.S.'s at least side, we kind of had some inklings that Japan might attack or do something, but it was still a sneak attack. This is like, they attack Dune. It's really not a sneak attack, yet somehow they pull the same thing that Pearl Harbor did, where they have all their ships way too far away and they're all stacked together. So they come in, they just bomb all the ships, destroy everything immediately, which is exactly what happened at Pearl Harbor. What are we doing? And then they all don't have any like uniforms on or anything. They're like running out in their PJs. Shouldn't we be on high alert? What are we doing here? I thought Atreides was supposed to be like a good and smart like army. They're not even ready in any way. They're all like waking up from their naps. Half your like force should be ready to go at least.
And they know ahead of time this is a trap. Leto Atreides knows that they're getting sent in there, and there's some stuff going on.
Yeah, and there's no guards inside. Leto maybe just an idiot. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know what was going on. No.
Careful.
Slow down on the
But all right, well, can you explain to me why all their ships are bunched together? You know, we're in a desert. You can put them anywhere, but they're all like strategically placed so they can bomb them all at once.
I agree with you in large part, but for that, I mean, there's only a limited amount of space within the shield wall. I think is why all the ships need to be there. They can't be outside, otherwise the worms are going to come get them. I would just double down on why wasn't there more security at the shield? Like Dr. Yue, a medical doctor, rolls up, caps 3 guys at the door, and then that's it. And then nobody notices the shield goes down. That's my issue.
I couldn't agree more. We're talking about a shield wall here. So that's your first line of defense. It'd be like if instead of Luke having to shoot some torpedoes through a hole that had to travel through the entire Death Star, it'd be like if you could just walk in there and push the destroy button and they had 2 stormtroopers just waiting, just chilling there.
Yeah.
It's like, this thing's kind of a big deal. Like maybe we should have a whole battalion just hanging out there.
Yeah, I think, Keith, the only thing maybe in his defense is that he didn't expect it to come on like day one, night one. Like maybe he was like, look, okay, they try to assassinate my kid, but they're not going to like fully storm the house, right?
This is
like,
supposed to be a military society. Hours. They're like, let's just hang out. We're on vacay, let's put our feet up. Everyone can go to sleep right now. It's dark outside. Every single person in our army. Let's just all go to sleep.
Did the Harkonnens, when they came in, did they say Tora, Tora, Tora? That was the attack signal for Japanese on Pearl Harbor.
Oh, is that right? I thought that was the Jewish Bible.
I think it means tiger, 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 but they haven't said it yet in Shōgun, so I don't know what that actually means yet.
Was what's his name, Japanese?
Dr. Yue?
Chinese.
Is China even a place? Like, China's not a place. He's just a guy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, they speak Mandarin. Him and Paul speak Mandarin in that one quick scene.
Do you know Mandarin?
谢谢你好.
Wow, all right.
Before he goes and meets the Reverend Mother or whatever, there's like a quick Mandarin scene there. So I'm guessing that's Yue.
Well done. Well, that's why we bring you on the podcast. You're very, very well cultured.
While we're on Dr. Yue, how do we feel about his story arc in the sense that protects his wife, pretty much puts Leto to his death, but thinking he can potentially kill the Baron at the same time, but then also saves Paul and Jessica? Are we team Dr. Yue or are we no Dr. Yue?
Yue is clearly from House Atreides based on his planning too, because I feel like his wasn't great either. This is one of my stock downs that I can jump into is semantic language that the Baron uses like twice in this, where he's just like, I said you could join your wife in death. You're just like, what? No, that's not what. When Yue came to you and was like, I want to be rejoined with my wife, he didn't mean in the afterlife. Right? Like, come on. This is bullshit. So he pulls that. And then he, on the Reverend Mother, she was like, they should not be harmed, Paul and his mother. He's like, I won't harm them. But the desert? Who knows? It's just like, well, enough of this shit.
He's a lawyer by heart right there. That's all that is.
yeah, exactly. The fine print in the Harkonnen Empire, I guess, is a big deal.
Yeah, everyone's like, damn, the Baron, he got me again.
Yeah, for the 100th year in a row, or however old he is at this point. But so for that with Yue, I feel like was a stupid, like just dumb. Like you got to know who you're dealing with here. I think you got to say bye to your wife and move on.
My first stock down is words. So one would think a movie based on a book, words would be important, and also just like a movie in general, words are important. But I'm fairly certain that if they released this movie without any dialogue, we still had the Hans Zimmer score, and obviously we could see the visuals, I would watch it just for that. And I would think it was probably one of the better movies I had seen in the year. I feel like when they gave people the script, it was like 20 pages. And they were like, what's going on? And half of the pages were just like Hans Zimmer score. Because there's really not a ton of dialogue.
I 100% agree. If this was like a silent movie without those cards in between the silent movie that have like dialogue and whatever's going on, I would 100% watch this based on Hans and all the faces of all these people that are very expressive or so creepily like non-expressive that I get the expressiveness that they're going for, if that makes sense.
Perfect set.
I knew Keith would get that.
I think you pretty much understand exactly what's happening in the story without any dialogue. Like it was so well done that you could really figure out that all out. You know what I'm saying? I was kind of stunned by it, honestly, because after especially rewatching the 84 one, it's like there's just everyone's talking all the time. And when someone's not talking, it's a picture and someone's talking about it, So for this to be the complete opposite, just this vast desert visual, and you're just like, holy smokes. So, yeah, words. We don't really need them, Sometimes less is more. Keith, what else do you have for Stock Down?
Stock Down being the chosen one. And not because I feel like most movies and historical figures that are the chosen one, they go through some suffering. In this case, Paul's dad gets murdered. A lot of his friends and family get murdered to save him. All this. And that's not the reason. That's not the stock down the reason. But the reason is because we anoint him this like godlike person. We follow his story arc. But then we get to watch him also get completely exposed in the 40-yard dash by his mom. They're running away from the worm. And he gets beat by like 15 yards in a 40-yard dash by his mom. This guy's not the chosen one. Once like the Fremen saw that, they should have been like, oh, this guy isn't it. No, he's done. Like, you can't be beat by your mom in a 40-yard dash. I'm sorry. You just can't. You just can't have that happen. So not being the chosen one, or being the chosen one stock down after seeing that.
I think the Fremen, what was his name? Jami or James or whatever, that guy? I think he saw that and was like, I'm taking this kid out right now. Yeah. Like, that's why he challenged him. He's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We're going to let this guy in? No.
They're like, it was super brave. It's like, he's also super fucking slow, huh? Like, Jesus Christ, get across the sand, bud.
Not that this is a defense, but I guess Paul is supposed to be 15 and his mom is 27 or 28, I think, in this world.
So she was impregnated at 13?
Yeah.
Really, the bad guy in this is his dad, right?
Wait, no. I got it mixed up. Chalamet and the actress are 12 years apart, but in the story, they're supposed to be 20 years apart. That's my bad. So she's 20 years.
And she's an Olympic sprinter? Like, what are we attributing that to?
So she's 35 then in the movie, and he's 15.
Well, as a 36-year-old who's in the prime of his life.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, all right. Yeah,
I bet you could take a bunch of 15-year-olds, Dylan, in a race. Sorry, just to clarify that. Make sure you don't cut that out.
Did you have any other stock downs, Mikko?
Yeah, well, I don't want to pile on the Swedes, so we can maybe run through this one quick, but they're always the villains, and I think there's a reason for it. So stock down on Swedish people.
Why are they always the villains? Wait.
Yeah, wait, what?
It's not me that's saying this. It's Stellan Skarsgård, the Baron, the actor who plays the Baron. It's his career. It's the girl with the dragon tattoo. He's the bad guy. King Arthur, he's the bad guy. Mamma Mia, is that his daughter? You know, he's one of 3 people that could be the father, and he's been absent in her life. Bad guy. Good Will Hunting, bad guy.
Do you know how fucking easy this is for me? Do you know how easy it is?
Exactly. So, whatever. He won the Fields Medal, but nobody really likes him.
Who cares with the Fields Medal?
Yeah, he didn't show up at the funeral. I mean, let's be honest. So
exactly.
Bad guy.
Interesting, yeah. And his son played the clown in It, so...
Although he was the good guy in the Russian nuclear...
Shut the fuck up, Keith. Shut the fuck up.
Dissenting opinion? Wait, what Russian bomb movie?
Chernobyl.
Oh, Chernobyl, yeah. That was phenomenal. God, that was so good.
Maybe he was the one that sabotaged the plant. Maybe that's what it was. That's the real story that we didn't think about.
Yes, cut the other part out. Keep that part in. Yeah. Other stock down was U.S. state names, like Duncan, Idaho. Not Idaho, especially how badass he is. No, that last name does not suit him. He's like a Joe Montana type. Montana is a great last name if we're going to pick a state. But Idaho, no, that does not suit
I
that
will
man.
say that in this movie, and I'm a big Jason Momoa fan, just saying, but he does kind of look like a potato in this movie. I don't know what he was eating, but he's swole in all the wrong places. I was like, Jason Momoa, why are you so thick? Why are you so thick in this movie? I didn't understand.
I think he needs a beard. That's why.
Oh, maybe that was it.
Yeah, that's the only reason you're not used to his face without it.
I know this is an audio medium, but as someone with a beard, I can tell you it greatly helps in that aspect.
It checks out. That makes sense. My last stock down is top billing. So this is an ensemble cast. I feel like everyone had top billing, but one that I was most excited about was the lady known as Zendaya. I don't know, because once again, I'm uncultured. But she's, 1, phenomenal actress, 2, beautiful. And I was like, oh, she's going to play Shandi? Like, this is super cool. I'm excited to see her. She's pretty much in a music video. That's all she does for the entire movie. She's just in a music video. Like, she could have been in a Backstreet Boys music video where it's just like flashing to her, like looking at the camera with wind in her face, or has her mask on and her blue eyes, or is no dialogue. Like when she got the script, she just started going through the first 10 pages, like read them, and she was like, okay, when do I come in? Next thing you know, she's like scrambling, pulling pages, being like, I have literally no lines in this movie. Why am I here?
First off, you talk about music videos, and you didn't mention her talent as a singer. Replay? That fucking's a jam.
Oh, I don't know if I know that song.
I think I've brought this up a few times, and you still haven't listened to it. And she also narrates. I think she's narrating a lot of the time. So she has some lines.
Oh,
good.
okay. Yeah. She does do some narrating. But really, though, I guess go back to Stock Up is for a slow burn. I'm super jazzed for Dune Part 2 because Shandi is a big character in the book. Like, she's a really big character. She's his number one. Who's the person you talk to when you need advice for stuff in like political stuff? Sure, she's like his consigliere, whatever the case is. But she's the person he talks to in like full honesty. You know, even when he's like scared, he doesn't know who he is. Am I the Kwisatz Haderach? Am I all this stuff? He talks to her about that. So like when he's most vulnerable, like that's when you get like vulnerable Paul too. I'm excited to see more of her going forward. I feel like we can go through some of this love-hate stuff pretty quickly, so we'll jump into that. I just wanted to start with mine because I really just have one. It's three, but they're really one. So what I loved, and we've kind of already talked about it, but costume design, set design, basically all the visuals, really. Everything was incredible, making it seem so big. The whole story is so massive, so having... And Dune, just a desert planet, is... hard to even imagine. I think he did such a good job with it. It's just beautiful. You could stop this movie, pause it at any time and be like, that's a desktop background. That's a desktop background. It was so well done. So I love that aspect. Keith, what about you?
The dragonfly helicopters.
Oh, the ornithopters. They're so perfectly done. Yeah.
Yeah, they need those in real life. I don't know why we don't have those already. Even though it wasn't a ton of world building, the world building was sick in this overall. And then I liked it better than the book, the movie better than the book. So okay. I know that's rare, and we're not supposed to say that on the book podcast here, but I understood the movie way better, so and it was better visually.
Yeah, well, just in regards to the world building and whatnot, if you're into board games, supposedly, and I haven't played it, there's a Dune board game that's legit. It's, you know, everyone plays as like a different house, and, you know, you have to like have spice and you're trading goods. It's intricate, but it's supposedly super fun. So
the reason I learned of Dune is it was one of the original RTS, one of the original Command and Conquer games. Like I didn't know what Dune was in book.
Well, if anyone wants to come down to the Cape, my local library has the game, and I just go in there sometimes and I look at it and I'm like, if only I had friends to play this with. So Mikko, what'd you love?
I think my number one is spitting as a sign of respect. I think that's so cool. I know you guys are thinking it, so I'm going to come out and say it. This is nothing sexual, okay? It's just purely, I think spitting is cool. I think I've always thought spitting is cool. I've always wanted to be able to do that, like, spit where it just, like, comes out in, like, a straight line. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like almost like tobacco spit, but it's not tobacco.
Yes, the old cartoons where they would chew tobacco and spit it into the can. Ding. Like, that's the coolest thing ever. So yeah, I love that scene where he just spits and it's Duncan says, thank you for honoring us with your moisture of your body or whatever. I thought that was awesome. That was a big love for me.
Except Leto just kind of does the spray spit. You know, I was like,
not a good spit from him. He was a terrible character.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're figuring out here.
I agree with you, Mikko, and also relating this to Shōgun, which we're reading now, it's the same for me when we read that and they're talking about like slurping your noodles or like your sake. You're supposed to like slurp it. And so many households, you know, when you're a kid, it's like, don't slurp your soup, you know, whatever this thing or the other thing. And there it's, you know, ooh, you know, if you really like it, you're supposed to slurp it. And whenever I go to like a ramen joint, I love that because I slurp the shit out of my soup.
I had a couple, there was like two pieces of dialogue that I really liked because we've talked about how limited the dialogue was, but I really liked the line, fear is the mind killer, that she says when she's standing outside of the room when Paul has got the poison needle and hand in the box scene or whatever. I love that line. And then super subtle by what's his name? Josh Brolin's character,
Gurney Halleck.
Gurney Halleck, thank you. He quotes the Bible because I had to look this up. I'm not a not a religious man. Sorry, God. But from Deuteronomy 33:19, if you want to look it up.
Oh wow, okay.
he said after they were talking about how much the Harkonnens pulled out the spice and how much money they made or whatever, they're sitting at that big table with all the House Atreides top brass. And he just says, kind of like under his breath, "They shall suck the abundance of the seas and the treasure hid in the sand." I was like, that's just fucking cool. Yeah. Nobody talks like that. Like, I've never heard anyone say anything that cool in real life. And that's why I love movies, is because they just say super cool shit like that.
You couldn't do it in real life. At the same time, you believe it. It doesn't seem like, oh, that's ridiculous. So you believe that someone would say that. In regards to the fear is the mind killer, I think it's like a Bene Gesserit prayer or something like that. If you Google it, it's a longer, it's like a full paragraph or something. But it's actually just so on point for life, just in the sense that in our daily lives, like we all live in this like state of fear, we have that, and it's something in our system, where like our parasympathetic nervous system or whatever like goes off, and you kind of lose focus of what you're supposed to be doing because the fear kind of takes over. And if you just like zone that out, it's almost like Buddhist in a way. Like you can almost like live in a way that is true to yourself and not have all of this noise that's just your own head talking to you. But the quote or the full thing in the book is so good. And sometimes when I'm in situations like that, like say that I was on a roller coaster and I was like, I'm going to shit my pants. I'm like, fear is the mind killer. All right, let's jump into hates. I'll start because I only have one. And my hate is where it stopped. I know that they said, oh, we wanted to make this into 2 parts because it has a very defined stopping point. I couldn't disagree more. It's not very defined. It didn't make a lot of sense to stop it there. It's like really not a ton happens in this movie. Obviously there's the big battle, or not even a battle, but the assault on Arrakis by the Harkonnens. But outside of that, it's really not a lot going on. It's just like really pretty things happening. It was a weird place to stop it. I know they kind of gave a little teaser in there by showing someone riding a sandworm, which was pretty cool. But I didn't like where it stopped, and more importantly, I didn't like that it stopped. This could have been 20 hours and I would have been down. So yeah, I'm just a little upset about that. Mikko, what about you?
I do agree with you. I didn't like it. I wouldn't say I hated it. I do dislike how they ended it, and especially learning that they actually shot more and decided to not include it in this part, but they will include it in part 2, is a little bit annoying. Because why, if you already shot it, why don't you just give it to us now? Why are you making us aware that exists and then
I somehow went into this movie like pretty blind on that it was stopping and that it was a part 1, but it wasn't marketed as such.
No, I wasn't aware of it either. So you're not alone.
I remember pausing it like with 30 minutes left, and I was like, "No, how are they going to finish the story with 30 minutes left? This is crazy." Like, they're just going to burn through all of this other stuff, and then it just like stopped, and I was like, "Wait, what?" It was almost like a Sopranos like fade to black. I was like, "Wait, what the hell is going on here?"
Yeah, I mean, I watched the '84 version as well before watching this one, so I was like, "Oh man, they're ramping up to the best part, to where all the shit's about to go down." And then it's sandworm and cut to credits. Granted,
the 84 one kind of does the same thing, but then that last half hour is just them trying to fit everything in, which didn't work really well. Keith, what about you? Hates?
Just the Doctor, Leto. I don't know if you saw this, if you've been on the Twitters recently, but Josh Brolin released a poem for Timothy Chalamet. I don't know if you guys can look it up. I could read it also. It is very, very uncomfortable.
Jesus Christ.
Did you guys see it?
No.
Nope.
The first line I'll just give you. Your face is etched by adolescence. That's the first line. And it gets more cringy from there.
Yeah. When famous people like think they then have the ability to just go and do stuff and like their shit doesn't stink, that's unfortunate. But considering I've loved Josh Brolin since The Goonies, I'm just gonna stay away from that and pretend like it doesn't exist.
Okay, that's a smart move. I mean, if he wrote this about his newborn baby, it would actually make some sense. But it's written for another man that's 26 or something. It's very weird.
And not just to send it to him, but to like be like, hey,
to release it to the public.
World, got to see this. All right, I'll get into some studio notes quickly. I'm going to run through this. So the book was released in 1965 by Frank Herbert. People wanted to adapt it into a film, but it was like so complex, like I don't know if it's going to happen. So this guy, Alejandro Jodorowsky, I don't know if I'm saying that particularly well, or that's how you pronounce his last name. He got the rights to it in the 70s, and he wanted to make a 14-hour film adaptation. In his words, he wanted to fabricate the feeling of LSD on the big screen. So he wanted to make everyone that watched it feel like they were on LSD. They didn't get enough funding, so that was scrapped. If you guys haven't seen the documentary, Jodorowsky's Dune, I would suggest watching it. It's pretty cool. Because basically all the guys he used went on to make Star Wars, went on to make Alien, went on to make all of these sci-fi movies that are iconic. So then David Lynch's Dune that we've been talking about, that came out in 1984. It was supposed to be a 3-hour movie, but was cut to just over 2 hours. And he kind of disowned it. I like it but hate it, and I think most people just don't like it, but whatever. Then there was a Sci-Fi Channel show. Finally, we got our movie here, Villeneuve. He shared his interest in making it in 2016, so he got hired to direct it, but he wanted to make Arrival and Blade Runner first, so he didn't get to writing it until 2018 with Eric Roth, who wrote some other big flicks, including Forrest Gump, which he won an Oscar for. But he's written a bunch of stuff, and there's another guy too, but whatever. It was supposed to be released earlier, but because of COVID, it got released in 2021, and it got simultaneously released on HBO Max. So there was concern that they weren't going to come out with part 2 unless this movie was successful. But it ended up making $400 million on a $165 million budget, so we got part 2. It's an 83.90 on Rotten Tomatoes. Did you guys want to recast this? In the recast, rewrite, review? Is there anyone that you would recast? I mean, it's a phenomenal cast.
I really struggled with recasting. I tried to come up with something just so we would have content, but I mean, I could recast Paul Atreides to Tom Holland or Barry I don't know how to say the fucking guy's last name.
And I appreciate you saying you struggle with it, because I thought Timothée Chalamet was so good. And
he is.
Denis said he didn't want anyone else, supposedly. He was I only wanted Timothée Chalamet, because he wanted someone young but that looked wise, kind of thing, that had a sense of aged wisdom about them. And I think he fits the bill.
They've got to be young looking. They have to be kind of, well, sorry, Keith, to get into the poem, pretty but not too pretty type of vibe to
adolescence.
I guess if we had Tom Holland, we could have had a live sex scene though.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, him and Zendaya are dating, right? So that could have just happened. So.
The only thing I wish was that more of the Harkonnens were just all Swedes. I didn't care for them not all being Swedes. Am I right, Meek? Am I right?
Well, it's funny you say that, Keith, because in the 84 version, they're all gingers. They're all
I was
going to
bring that up.
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up as someone who's married to a ginger. That is extremely offensive. So I'm glad they went bald in the new version. But yes, Keith, they should have just had the whole Skarsgård family be all the Harkonnens, because they are weirdly different enough looking that they could have all played whatever different roles of Dave Bautista is great, Austin Butler, who will be in the new one, great, but they have a variety of Skarsgårds and their weird little Swedish Brady Bunch that they could have fit them in somewhere. And the more Swedes as villains, it just makes my argument easier. Yeah,
honestly, Dave Bautista is so good. I mean, he doesn't do much, but he sells it for some reason. It's he's a wrestler, you know what I mean? But he's good. I mean, obviously he's good in the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, but I just thought he doesn't have a lot of stuff going on in this movie, but I wouldn't recast him for sure not. And you were saying about Austin Butler is going to be in the new one. Yeah, that he plays Fade, who is played by Sting in the 84 version. So it should be, he's kind of a main character too. I want more Baron Harkonnen. I thought every time he was on screen, it was awesome. He just takes over the scene, and I just wanted more of that dark, terrible place. I was actually thinking when I was watching this, it was kind of like a Rick and Morty type thing, but the Harkonnen world just seems so terrible, and it's so dark, and everyone's so mean. They're what's the daily life for just a Harkonnen soldier? What are they going home?
9 to 5?
Yeah, I want a 9 to 5. Do they deal with the normal things that we deal with, or are they just terrible all around and gnawing on raw animal bones? I needed to see it.
Get you a one-way ticket to Stockholm, and you can experience it firsthand, because it's basically whatever they do.
Yeah, I guess if I was gonna try to figure out a recast, I wasn't massive on Jason Momoa's character, like the Duncan Idaho character. I
mean, you've got to have a badass there, though.
I know, and I like Jason Momoa for sure, so no problem for me. But I just don't think he's that good of an actor. He's just more charismatic good guy that I was down, and I also trusted his badassery, so it fits.
He's good in that fight scene, though, at the end against the Sardaukar. I know some of the other ones, you're right, he looks like a potato. I didn't put it together with the lack of beard until we started talking about it. But that fight scene, you get emotional. I get choked up thinking about it.
And no spoilers here. If they did continue the series, because they've said Villeneuve or whatever has said that he wants to make the next one. He wants to make Messiah, and then had plans for then it going to like HBO or someone and doing a series about it. There's more, not Duncan Idaho, but there's more stuff for Jason Momoa in the future in the books. So I really hope that happens, because that character does some very interesting things.
It's Villeneuve, if you want to say his last name.
No, thank you for doing that now that we're like an hour and 20 minutes into this, and I've said it like 30 times. But I really appreciate that you could have helped me out, maybe even before we went live, to just say like, hey,
no, I liked it.
No, it's more organic this way. I think you as a content creator would have wanted it this way.
For a review here, I got Paul Burns at the Sydney Morning Herald. FYI, Keith, if you want to go pay this guy a visit when you're in Australia, I think you should. He says, Dune is a triumph of mediocrity. What it does well enough, but was it worth doing? It's a cookie-cutter movie, a restatement of every trope that it now impoverishes cinema. What is this guy talking about? Cookie cutter? Cookie cutter? If it's cookie cutter, that means anyone can do it. So let's go see some other person go and try to make this movie. Trope? It's based on source material. If you're telling me the trope of like a young person who has to fill into his father's shoes, but then has issues with that, or is potentially looked at as someone that he's not sure he can fill the shoes of yet in this terms of a messiah, okay, sure, that's a trope, but that's just life.
What does he think a trope is? A badass story I want to see more of? Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back? Of course. Where they find out all the reviews for their movie and go beat the shit out of all those people?
On poopshoot.com?
On poopshoot.com. Yeah. Exactly. That's what we need to do to that guy, is go beat the shit out of him, because that is...
Easy.
Allegedly beat the shit out of him.
Thank you. There we go.
Okay. Allegedly, what needs to happen is something harmful towards him.
Kid, use some semantics. We're going to let him reunite with his wife.
That's right. Jesus. Is his wife dead?
Yeah. Just saying it's a triumph of mediocrity is I couldn't imagine seeing one of those just awe-inspiring scenes and being like, mediocre. This guy's the Baron Harkonnen of reviewers here. Is terrible.
He's got a sad life. He's again, I'm going to do another movie. The critic from Ratatouille that doesn't like anything and that just shits on all over everything. That's this guy. He would watch his child be born and call it mediocre. Okay.
No, he'd call it a trope. He'd be like, "Oh my god, birth, such a trope." Everyone's
the Ratatouille reviewer liked the Ratatouille. What do you mean? Come on, kid. Did you even watch the movie?
Yeah. Well, he liked the Ratatouille in the end, but before that, he basically killed that other French chef with his review.
Sorry, Paul. We didn't mean to tear you apart. Mikko's going to kill you, I guess. But allegedly, sorry. But
no, he's going to die. It's not me doing it. It's just eventually everyone does, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's semantics.
All right, let's get into it. Would you recommend it in any last words? Keith, you first.
I'd recommend it. I think the movie experience is good. I think you watch it a second time with the subtitles on. That's how I would recommend it, and you'll follow the story a little bit better. I gave it 3.25 buddies.
Out of 4. This is out of 4, by the way.
I gave it a lot lower the first time I watched it. Second time viewing is better.
Agreed. But it's not like a second time viewing is better like Tenet is or something like that, like a Nolan movie where it's like, I didn't understand what the hell was happening, and now I have to it's just like, you get a little more of it,
You're not trying to play catch up the whole time. It's like there's a lot more subtle stuff you can pick up on the second time. You're like, oh, okay, now I get why they did that.
Mikko, as the fourth time, would you recommend it?
I would 100% obviously recommend it. I've watched it 4 times. I think everything about this movie is entertaining. It's enjoyable. I mean, we've talked about it a million times. It doesn't need to even be dialogue. It's so good. Speaking of Tenet, I read that Hans Zimmer turned down doing the score for Tenet to do this movie instead because he was such a fan of Dune. I mean, it just has everything start to finish for me, except, I mean, it needs a part 2. But other than that, I think it's great. And I'd give it, I don't know. I would never give anything 100%, but what can I do? 3.9 buddies here?
Wow. That's the highest ever.
You can give something 4. Pulp Fiction. That's 4.
I should have brought this up. And hey, they haven't introduced the Emperor. And when I looked up who's cast as the Emperor, I'm extremely excited to see what he will bring to the role, and that is Mr. Christopher Walken.
Like, put this watch in my asshole. Speaking about
the
Pulp
watch.
Fiction.
Yeah.
The watch. It's my
The watch.
Yeah, I'd obviously recommend it. I think as a Dune series lover, I haven't read the whole series. I haven't read Chapter House, but I love the series, and the fact that I still love this movie, considering that it leaves out so much of the book, I think speaks more to it for me than anything else. It's just so beautiful. He did such a great job with it. I gave it a 3.5, which is pretty high in my book. And I really hope everyone watches it. Just put it on, and if you don't even like the story or you don't like sci-fi, just when you have people over, put it on mute. It's just like a beautiful background on your TV. So, all right, parting words for you, Mikko. Have you started reading Shōgun?
Shōgun has still not arrived for me. I live in the middle of nowhere for all the listeners.
Don't tell Paul. Okay, well, I'm hoping you get to Shōgun. And will this be the first book you've read since Red Rising?
This will be, yes, it'll be the first book I've read cover to cover since Red Rising, and the second book I've read cover to cover in my entire life.
Pretty ambitious.
So ambitious.
I'm nothing if not ambitious. I mean, I've never said that before, but I guess I'll lean into it now. I've got some baby books that I need to read, but I'm not reading those suckers cover to cover because whatever.
Yeah,
you'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll figure it out. Well, on those late nights when you're up with the baby and you can crack a book, Shōgun will be there for you. All right, Keith, talking about Shōgun, that's what we got coming up next, right?
Yep.
Books 2 and books 3. Honestly, I'm upset we haven't read Dune yet, so we might have to go back and do that. We might have to adjust the whole calendar. We'll figure that one out. Either way, March 1st, Dune Part 2 is coming out. If you haven't seen Dune Part 1, it leaves Netflix the 28th. Or it's a leap year. It might be the 29th. So check it out. Otherwise, Mikko, thanks for joining. Always fun to have you on. You got the greatest insights, and he didn't mean anything he said about killing Paul. That's Paul Burns from Sydney Morning Herald. His address is... No, I'm just kidding. Keith, I'll catch you next time for Shōgun. Bye now.